What if you could run an agile sprint without apps, dashboards, or digital overwhelm, with just pen and paper? You're about to hear my conversation with Claudia. She is an architect from Germany. We first met a couple of years ago when she was taking my course where I teach people how to apply agile principles and tools to non-tech projects and goals. Back then, she showed me something that really stuck with me. She was running her sprints inside a bullet journal. In this conversation, we revisit a bullet journal. We talk about analog tools versus digital productivity apps. We even coin the term digital infinity. And Claudia shows very practically how to do this, how to run your sprints inside a simple notebook. So if you are using a bullet journal and you love it and you don't want to give it up, or you simply want to run your sprints inside a notebook, this video will show you how. And of course, we talk about perfectionism, one of my favorite topics. Tell me how you've been since the last time we've talked.
That was 2 years ago.
I think it was exactly 2 years because I remember where I was back then when we talked, and it was 2 years ago.
Mhm.
And that was like after you took the course, and maybe there was some time after the course.
Yeah, I think I did the monthly method back then.
What part of it do you remember working the best for you?
I think the sprint backlog, differentiating it from the general backlog, choosing your tasks or projects you want to do, and then to spread them out on the 3 weeks. What really stood out for me is the cool off week.
Oh, the favorite part, I guess, of everyone's life, the cool off week.
Yeah. Now, it's something I didn't do at all.
And if we don't do it, then there's always a burnout, and it takes a lot longer to recover from a burnout than to take a 1 week off.
Yeah.
It's much more efficient to take regular breaks. I remember being stuck in this cycle where you push, 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 then you burn out and don't want to do anything. For the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, I remember like going on this like YouTube, reading books, trying to gather motivation to actually like go and do something again. And I remember it taking so much time to get back to this level of enthusiasm and ambition. It doesn't make any sense that I'm spending so much time either recovering or getting back to normal. It's much more efficient to just take regular breaks and not let yourself burn down so much.
Yeah, I totally get it. And this is one of the 5 areas I have to improve in my life.
Okay. So I remember you telling me that you used bullet journal for your sprints. And that was something that really stood out to me because I usually use a Scrum board, or I know people use different notebooks or apps, even though I'm not a big fan of digital apps. But yeah, so I wanted you to kind of talk through bullet journal, how you've been applying this and how the method evolved over time. What are you doing today? Let's talk about your bullet journal if you're still using it.
Can show you how I would implement it in the bullet journal if I were still bullet journaling today. What I'm not doing because I'm in search of another simpler method. Because the one thing what really is a hassle for me in the bullet journal, it's another mass of text. I'm a very visual person and need things drawn visually, and the bullet journal partly visualizes the things because you have the different bullets, and this makes it easy to discover events or moods or tasks in your writing. But it's still too much text for me, so I can't easily grasp what I have written. So I'm in a phase of breaking up with bullet journaling.
I mean, you've been using it for a while, so you probably know more about it. I just have the surface level knowledge of it, and I've watched a few videos of the founder of the bullet journal. A few things that I strongly agree with. First one being an analog tool. And the second idea, I remember I watched his video and he said there is a power in rewriting your goals. And his thought was that if you're too lazy to rewrite the goal for the new month or transfer it to a new page, it tells you something, right? Maybe it's not worth doing it. Maybe you should forget it. So even like this simple, like a little effort of rewriting something again, it's a small test whether it's still relevant. It's very similar to the backlog idea, where it's every sprint planner, the first thing we do is we delete a bunch of things from the backlog that is no longer relevant. And that's the best time saving hack, is that like you delete stuff. And yeah, so I really like this idea that sometimes you need a little friction to wake you up from inertia and see if it's still relevant. I do see the point of having too much text. That's why I like the Scrum board. You can visually see the progress of your sprint, what's in progress, what's done. So kind of even the visual representation of the cards tell you a lot of information about the progress.
Yeah, that's really the point of being analog, having to rewrite things and redraw things on a page for testing if it's still worthy to have the thing in your life, if it's still relevant. And this little friction is what I really love about bullet journaling. I found that having digital infinity is not helpful for my life.
I like this word, digital infinity. I will adopt it.
I made it up.
Awesome. Show me how you said you have some ideas on how to use bullet journal.
I would like to draw it out for you what I would do if this were a bullet journal. So I fold it in half to simulate a bullet journal.
Yeah.
And I would have my headline, monthly sprint. And what I try to do in the bullet journal is to actually organize the sprint. I would make 4 columns. Oh, this is not in the middle. The beginning of the sprint is defining the goal, what I want to achieve with my sprint. So this is the sprint goal. And I would put it in a shape like an ellipse or something else. And this is the definition of done. I can list all the tasks or mini projects I need to do. And then I begin with my week 1. I have my week 2 and my week 3. So this is managing the tasks. Also, let's assume we have a bunch of sprint list.
Yeah.
And then I would simply number my week. So I'm in Germany, Monday, Dienstag, Mittwoch, Donnerstag, Freitag, Samstag, Sonntag, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Do this for each week. So Donnerstag, Freitag, Samstag, Sonntag. So I have the week plan ahead, and then I would choose which task I would do on Monday. So this task moves there. And in bullet journal, you have the option to manipulate the bullet in different ways. So if the task gets done, if you have a task you didn't get done on that day, you move it to another day, and this is the symbol for moving it. You move it down to Tuesday.
And you would rewrite it, right?
Yeah, I would rewrite it.
Yeah.
And so I have the overview over the whole sprint without the cool off week. The 3 weeks I'm working on my sprint, and I also can integrate the sprint capacity by blocking time for other events. This is a very visual version of the monthly method for me.
And so if you have, let's say, 2 sprint goals for the sprint, you would have this on one page and then another one.
It never occurred to me to have 2 different goals. I struggle with setting one goal, so that was not an option. But I would split them on separate pages because this is the collection of ideas, what needs to get done. In case of you can, in bullet journal, you can cross off what you've done. You can move this to another month. You can move this back to the backlog, or you can cross off things that are irrelevant.
Yeah, probably during the 3rd week, oftentimes we do descoping, so reducing the scope of the goal if you need to.
Yeah.
And that's when I usually tell people is like, what's the core and what's the fluff? And we get rid of the fluff. So it doesn't have to be moved anywhere. It just needs to be removed.
And you start with an idea what needs to get done. And while you are doing the things, oh, I don't need this. This is a bad idea. This will not work. And then you can cross it off. And other things move into the second or third week.
I love it. Well, first of all, I love the left column. It's a very clear representation of definition of done, and people always struggle with it. It's kind of like, what? It's not a collection of subtasks. No, it's the final state. And here, I think it's such a good visual representation that the definition of done is the final state, and in order to get there, you have all these subtasks, but they don't go into the definition of done. Yeah.
This is not a solution for the daily stand-up.
Well, in a way, you can open this. I think it would be a starting point, right? So you would look at your calendar, you would open this page and see, okay, well, I only have maybe like half an hour today after work to work on this project. What can get done in 30 minutes? And then you just decide to do that.
Yeah, and in a way, if external situations derange your plan, you could rewrite this on a new page and make a new plan. Then the next page is just a page away and you can start over.
Or maybe you can use a pencil to create the plan, and then if something changes, you just erase it.
I don't like that very much because pencil is not decided yet.
Oh, okay.
This makes the bullet journal too precious. I had a long way to take notebook not as too precious and to use it like it's a tool, an everyday tool, which should fit my life and not be an exhibition object.
That's the insight that only comes from a long time of using the bullet journal. And so from your experience, like when comparing analog versus digital tools, are you still proceeding with analog or you're considering shifting to digital?
No, I would stay on analog because it's so much better to make a mark in your life when you stay analog. I'm really a nerd. I love Notion, I love Obsidian, I love all the tools, and I struggled to make any progress with those tools in my life. Only as I returned to the bullet journal last year, my life got better because of handwriting, because of drawing on paper, because of rewriting things over and over again. I can't describe the difference, but digital infinity is not the solution. I really try to find a hybrid solution for my workflow. Let's take the example of a daily log. I love the idea of the bullet journal to have a daily log and to rapid log your life. And turned out having too many words on paper is not the right thing for me. What I do at the moment is I draw little pictures of my day. Perhaps I can show this if I find it. So this looks like that.
Oh, nice.
So little flowers, little suns, and just a few words what happened on that day. Sometimes I need a place for putting down a link, a screenshot, for elaborating an event longer, for storing a transcript or something else. And so I have a digital daily log in Obsidian. And this is the place where the longer texts go. And I think you need both, but you need clarity on paper first.
Do you go back to these notes, maybe like from a few years ago?
Yes, I do. I'm in deep need of a solid review process because that's a weak point and it's important to go back. But yes, I do.
Yeah, because for me, there was this point where I would read books, then highlight things, then think that I would need to take notes on what I read. But then I was like, under what condition would I go back and read all these notes? So I let go of this idea that I should have some sort of record of what I've read. Well, first of all, I figured out that the second time I read the book, I'm a new person and I see completely different things in the book that I haven't seen before. So maybe like highlights. Yeah, I think it's interesting to see what you were interested in like 2 years ago. But the notes, I thought that I would probably not use it as much, but the pressure of perfectionism that somehow I should have record of what I've read and like document it and everything, it was like ruining my life more than it was adding value. Similar with journals, I've been journaling for quite some time. maybe like in my 20s. But now I have it in a box. And nowadays, once every few years when I'm moving, I would like open a few journals for like 10 minutes and then I close them. Maybe when I'm very, very old, I will go through the notebooks, but I just haven't found a good reason to go back and read all this stuff.
It's the intention what you are journaling with. For me, my journals contain my thinking process and not my documentation of my day. So it's for me an idea generator, and I develop concepts and models
Oh, okay.
in my journal. So this is a thinking space.
Oh,
And
I see.
I very much want to revisit them, and I want to create something out of my ideas.
Okay. Because I thought like journals is always about like, oh, this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, you have a
Daily
calendar
log.
for that.
Yeah, that's the daily log of the bullet journal. It also serves a purpose because I spoke to people recently who say, oh, my life goes by me so far, and I can't remember what was yesterday. I can't even remember what I ate in the morning or something like that. The idea of the bullet journal is to do a weekly review and see if you are still on track with your intentions. You normally would have events in your week that put you away from your intentions and some that lead toward your intention. And this is perhaps similar to the sprint goal. Only if you do the things that lead toward your goal, you will have success.
And we also have the sprint retrospective. And I think the weekly review of bullet journal is kind of similar. In sprint retrospective, we review the whole sprint.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like what worked, what didn't. Usually the goal is to uncover your own style, your own preferences, your own taste. Oh, I like to work in the mornings on this things and in the afternoon on this things. And then my day goes so much smoother if I do X, Y, and Z. You do the review so that you can go into the next sprint a little more prepared with a little bit of information that you've learned. So it's kind of like learning the lesson, right? So you do something and then you're like, okay, what lessons can I learn from this so that I can apply in the future? So it's kind of like transferring lessons from the past to the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is also the purpose of the daily log because you can spot patterns in your week and in your days. And sometimes over a few weeks, you can spot patterns and then you can do something. You can say, I don't want that anymore. And then you can do something about it.
And now that you're talking about it, I'm having this thought that maybe the whole point of keeping this log is not necessarily to go back and review, but if you find yourself writing the same thing every day, it's like, I hate this, I hate this. Because you are writing this, somehow your brain registers it a lot more. And then it's like, oh, you've been writing the same thing for the last 3 weeks. Let's do something about it. But if you're just thinking it, it might go unnoticed. But if we keep writing the same thing over and over again, our brain will register.
Yeah, and I think it's important to write it with the hand. I don't think you would notice it if you were just typing it in a daily log.
Because it takes more time, more effort, you slow down. And if you decide to write it down, it means that it has some sort of strong emotional appeal, either positive or negative.
And you have the spatial memory. You remember where you put it on the page.
Okay.
It's also important that paper somehow creates a room or a space.
Yeah. So let's talk about daily stand up. Let's say you wake up, it's regular Tuesday, you sit down at your desk, then what?
So we have today Friday, the 23rd, also 23, and it's Friday. So this would be my header. And then I have a few things I do every day. For example, vitamin D3, D3 or omega-3. And those is my like tracking habits, but day for day. Those is only a handful of things, so it's easy to note them. And then I would go into the check-in. How did I sleep? How am I feeling? Do I have any pains? This is a quick scale of check-in, which is always the same order. And so I easily can spot how I'm feeling. And then I would go into the to-do list in the backlog, in the sprint backlog. I would note the most important tasks for today. If I had an appointment, I would note this also as a task with a time. So this
Hmm.
is our meeting today. It's 4 p.m. for me. This is the dashboard. Carol calls it the dashboard. I would start with my log. This is a thought. This is a task which popped into my mind. This is an event and this is a mood. And I also can do nested tasks. For example, a thought and I feel this and I need to do that. So I can nest the bullets underneath. This is the daily log.
Interesting. Okay.
So on the dashboard. It needs a lot of space to do this, which is the downside of the journal because you go very quickly through a notebook if you do this.
Thankfully, they're not too expensive these days.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And you can do this with any sort of notebook. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a bullet journal. You only need the workflow that works for you.
You put it on top of your daily log so you can always, let's say someone called you, you got distracted, and you're like, oh, what's happening? You sit down, but you have this list
Yeah.
front and center.
Yeah, that would be my daily stand-up.
Yeah. I remember the last time we talked, you were showing me something. I thought it was genius how you would have goals or tasks on one column, and then you would put a dot where it's in the to-do column, then you would connect it to the in progress, and then you would connect it to done. So can you show that?
I think it was something like this. Also, if this were my bullet page, then we have the sprint backlog. And I compressed the 3 weeks a lot more, as week 1, 2, 3. And I have my tasks. And I would move this to week 1. And this I plan for week 2. I think it was something like this. And if it gets done, it gets crossed out. But if I can't, I would move to week 3. I
Yeah.
think it was the system. I have a whole page more for the other ingredients of the monthly method.
Correct.
Perhaps I could have a backlog for the shiny objects.
Yeah. I would move it to a separate page.
I also can have the sprint goal, the definition of done, the vision, and the sprint capacity on this page in any order or layout. I think one could simply do a few boxes. Perhaps this is a better idea to have this on another page, but the sprint capacity is something which could fit into this.
Or maybe you can put important dates on there. So maybe meetings or something you should keep
Yeah.
in mind when planning when to do a certain task.
You could have a calendar with the sprint capacity.
Yeah.
And then you can see there is not much time here. And this would also make it more visible. It doesn't take up so much space on a wall. I don't have walls for a whiteboard or a Scrum board. So I invite any person who has walls for this. And I always rely on having a mobile sheet of paper or a notebook. And this makes it so much easier.
If we were to take the best stuff from the weekly review and the sprint retrospective and combine them together, how would it look like?
I think the plus minus next method is the best thing I found. I did this with my annual review and I separated this from my life areas. I had filled a whole small journal with my annual review and I didn't have an overview of what I have written. So I took a blank page and divided it into the 8 areas of life and I simply put in every box the plus, the minus, and the next. I think this is a very simple and very good structure to make a review.
So the plus would be for what's working, right?
Yeah,
Or was it minus for what's not working?
Yeah.
And next would be how to address the minus.
Yeah, and I had ideas of action steps for each area. So this is not a sprint, but my annual review. This is more than I had before.
Yeah, so kind of like next immediate steps, not necessarily the life plan for the next 10 years, but
No,
it's
it's
like,
sort of a direction I can go.
yeah.
So it's not an action step either, because I need to think about a fitness plan, for example. And this is not an action step. This is a whole sprint, I think. This whole experience with the annual review makes it so much more likely that I restart with the monthly method soon.
Yeah. Okay. I like this plus minus next. I like when things get simpler, and I think it's good for people who are suffering with perfectionism. If they hear a word yearly review, they would probably get scared and think of this, like fill out the entire notebook. And that's kind of like, oh my God, what's happening? But if it's just for each area, you put plus, minus, and next, I think that makes
Yeah.
it very doable.
Yeah. It reduces the scope, and it's all.
Yeah. For someone curious about writing sprints using a simple notebook, what would you tell them, or maybe like the biggest beginner mistake?
My advice is don't start with a notebook.
Okay.
Start with a blank sheet of paper. It's enough.
As you said, pick one of the two versions
Yeah.
that we've shown and pick one that you like. And I agree, that's more than enough to run your sprint. Every day you go to this piece of paper, you look at it, and you decide what to do.
Yeah. The huge advantage of having a notebook is you have a command central where everything related to your life lives in. But the question if you are able to set up it in a way that is working for you now. And so experiment with a sheet of paper first. Much more cheaper than buying a notebook.
If you could go back and tell your past self one thing about systems and consistency, what would it be?
I think perfectionism is really bad. I lost the monthly method because I think, okay, this is January, but I can't do the cool off week in week 4 because there is happening this thing. And in February, week 3, there are holidays in Germany, and this needs to be my cool off week. And so I got lost in how to set up a proper monthly sprint. The monthly sprint never happened.
Yeah, and with the sprints, you have an option. Some sprints can be 2 weeks or they can be 4 weeks. No one is punishing you for adjusting it a little bit. You're doing it for you.
Yeah.
I think the whole thing should be about flexibility. So on that note, I just want to, as a thank you for doing this interview, gift 2 months of free membership to the focus room. So that's where we do the sprints together as a group. Hopefully it's going to be a good motivation to start on the items you've listed in the next column. We're going into the cool off week this week, but starting the following week, it's our February sprint. Please join us.
Yes, I will.
The biggest benefit that I've seen from the membership is you observe other people achieving their goals and realizing that no one is perfect and life happens to all of us. No one is just sitting at their desk 9 to 5, accomplishing everything. Never happens, but we still get things done. I think you become a lot nicer to yourself as a result.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sure you'll have a lot to offer to the members when it comes to analog tool. A lot of members come in and I'm like, do the Scrum board, make the Scrum board, like forget your productivity apps, let's go analog. At first people are like, I don't know. With my private clients, I'm a lot stricter. So I was like, you have to do it. And then once people do it, they're like, I see what you mean. It's better to have an analog system than to try to keep up with digital infinity.
Yeah, it's something I had to learn the hard way myself because I'm a native computer user since 1985.
Yeah.
So I had Windows 3.1 on my computer and I had all the evolution of digital productivity.
Yeah, you're probably an early adopter, so you always want to play with new toys.
Yeah, and shiny objects, and I always wanted to make it work for me. I didn't succeed with this, and only the return to the analog.
Yeah, and I always like to remind myself, is like, especially when I'm traveling to Europe, where they have like all of these beautiful buildings, it's just breathtaking. And I always look at it, and they've managed to build this without Asana. We can do whatever we are trying to do without like all this digital tools, because I mean, look at this church, look at all of this beauty, and it was all done without digital project management.
That's
Yeah.
very good. I'll keep that.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and experience and insight from doing this bullet journal journey and
Thank you so much.
doing analog project management. I'll see you inside the focus room.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.